Going back to what I was telling you before the break, John Ratcliffe, when he was isolated with Donald Trump to basically feed Donald Trump Mossad talking points, including about phony, fabricated WMD propaganda about the Houthis about to get a nuclear weapon from Iran if he didn't strike. He was isolated by Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. And who is Susie Wiles? Subsequent to my report at the Gray Zone citing a inside White House source, a Trump official, we learned that Susie Wiles had actually went to Israel to work for Benjamin Netanyahu on his 2020 re-election campaign. How crazy is that? America first, and your chief of staff literally worked for a foreign leader? What's going on here? I mean, that's what we're unmasking is the biggest foreign influence infiltration operation in American history that is basically taking control of an administration that says it's America first and is taking us to a very dangerous place. And everybody's concerned about it, including on the left, on the right, and we're also concerned about where we're being taken in this country.
Well, here I am again. It is a Tuesday morning. I'm sitting out in my happy place out on the deck with my coffee, which is all I'm drinking because I'm on another 72-hour fast. It's my off day, and it's my favorite time of day, as you know. It's somewhere between 4 and 5 in the morning. And so finally I have a break to have a little chat with you. And I want to talk about the guy that you just watched. His name is Max Blumenthal. He is an investigative journalist. And Max Blumenthal is giving more examples, if you will, of the influence of Israel, the state of Israel, on American politics, the American government, and a lot of Americans. And I've talked extensively on my show about the influence of Israel on our nation, and that's not a good thing. And I've talked about the reasons why that is and why so many people have so much affection for Israel. I've talked about that ad nauseum. There's a lot of reasons for it. Some of them are theological because of bad theology. And if I could do anything to take the scales off of people's eyes of American people who have this wrong-headed idea about Israel as being God's chosen nation and all this nonsense, I would be doing a great service to humanity if I could just open the, not that I'm anybody, folks, but I do realize the truth about Israel. And if I could make everybody understand that, we would be a whole hell of a lot better off as a nation. Here you have Max Blumenthal, this investigative journalist, giving yet another example of the influence of Israel on the American body politic, talking about Susie Wiles, who of course serves as Donald Trump's chief of staff, as you know. She is his right-hand man. She's with him every day. She is the doorkeeper. And here is Susie Wiles, who is a Bushite, a holdover from the Bush years, a Bush supporter, which should tell you all you need to know. Here is Susie Wiles, right at the right-hand side of Bush, and Susie Wiles worked for the, this is just bizarre to me, the Netanyahu campaign in Israel. What is that? You're the chief of staff for the President of the United States, not to mention the fact that you're an American citizen and you are working on the campaign to elect somebody, anybody, as the prime minister of a foreign country. That's Susie Wiles. And then he's talking about John Ratcliffe, who of course is the director of the CIA, and how John Ratcliffe, under the influence of Israel, the Israeli lobby, here's John Ratcliffe advising Trump and talking to Trump about all the different threats around the world and prodding Trump with his information to attack Iran. We're just up to our necks in these people, and it is easily proven the influence of Israel on American politicians. All you have to do is look, and it's easy. Anybody can do this. All you got to do is look and see how much money our politicians receive from Israel, and there's so many Americans it just doesn't seem to bother. Can you imagine a list of politicians who are receiving money from pick a country, Saudi Arabia, how about from Russia? How about from China? Can you imagine that? Not that they don't receive some money from other nations. I'm not saying otherwise. But overwhelmingly, our politicians are bought and paid for by Israel. Hence, they do the bidding of Israel. I'm an America first guy because simply due to the fact that I'm an American. I am an America first guy. I am for our sovereign nation. If I lived in another nation, I'd be for that nation first. I don't want us meddling in the affairs of other nations, just America. That is my concern. And I would like for the President of the United States, no matter who he may be, to have the same attitude. You're the President of this nation, and you should not come under the influence of anybody else in any other nation. It's interesting to me that Donald Trump listens to the advice of Susie Wiles and John Ratcliffe and Benjamin Netanyahu, the genocidal maniac, and proceeds to go out, buy into the lies, and launch a missile attack in Iran, and just days later has the gall, the audacity to lecture Vladimir Putin for doing the same thing. Well, if it's wrong for Putin, Mr. President, why isn't it wrong for you? If it's wrong for Putin, then why are you doing it? How is what you did in Iran somehow more righteous or somehow more justifiable than what Putin is doing in Ukraine? Can you explain that to me? Hypocrisy much? And of course, there's a number of people, intelligent people, who will tell you that Donald Trump's mission in Iran was pure folly, that there was nothing there for him to attack. Who are you going to believe? I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that Iran is no imminent threat to the United States of America before or after the attack, and we had no business wasting our weaponry on said attack. That's what I believe. But the point of the whole matter is our politicians, by and large, are controlled by Israel, the Israeli lobby, and the Israeli influence. And this should not be the case. And I don't care if it's Israel or any other nation, this should not be the case. This needs to end somehow, and we need to break the back of the Israeli lobby and their influence on American politicians. The good news is, and I mentioned this in passing last week, the influence of Israel in the hearts and minds of most American people is beginning to wane. Thank God. It is the boomer generation, my generation, who largely maintains this Israel is God's chosen nation, or Israel is this wonderful nation in the Middle East, our greatest ally. Most of the boomers, I suspect, would still latch onto that idea, but the boomers are getting up there in years, aren't we? And the generations coming behind us don't buy it, by and large. The X generation, the millennial generation, they don't buy into Israel is somehow God's chosen land and Israel is somehow America's greatest ally. They are beginning to see through the lies, and they understand what's happening here. When you have people like the late assassinated Charlie Kirk beginning to turn on Israel, that is verifiable, and beginning to understand what I'm talking about with as far as Israel is concerned. Charlie Kirk was a 31-year-old man who had incredible sway and influence over the X and millennial generations. And they're turning away from this nonsense that we were taught growing up, and they are beginning to understand. And isn't it wonderful that people, I don't know how many of you saw this memorial service on Sunday for Charlie Kirk. I watched I watched some of it. I couldn't endure the whole thing. I don't know how those people lasted. Somebody told me, I think Marina told me it lasted 7 hours or something. That's just unbelievable. I watched some of the president's talk, but it was just too long. Mr. Trump can be rather wordy, and I just couldn't listen to the whole thing. But Tucker Carlson's little sermon was, I thought, tremendous. It was excellent. And it's interesting to me how apparently so many of the followers of Charlie Kirk are turning back to religion and turning back to the church in many instances. It's wonderful, and of course, it has to be noted that his widow, Erica Erica Kirk, had the bravery and the Christian ideal of actually saying of his assassin that she forgives him. Wow, that was huge. But this is what's happening in America. This is a good thing. This is a positive thing. Trump is right in a lot of things, and of course, but when it comes to Israel, he's wrong. And the good news is that I believe that J.D. Vance is wise to what I'm talking about, and I think we're going to see perhaps J.D. Vance leading this country away from that heresy, the political, theological heresy of Israel is somehow some special nation. In the Middle East, they're simply not. They're just another nation. And of course, the history books one day are going to show that what Netanyahu has done in Gaza is on par with what we've been told was done in Germany and in Russia after the revolution. Of course, in America, we never hear these things in American textbooks because our textbooks are owned by groups, or our educational system is owned by groups who have a particular narrative. You know, growing up in American schools, we never heard about what Russia called the Great War. We didn't know about the slaughter of millions and millions of Christians, which dwarfed whatever the bad man in Germany did. We never knew about that. And now you're seeing the same thing in Gaza. And thankfully, brighter, younger, more well-educated and inquisitive Americans are beginning to question the prevailing narrative about that country. Let me shift gears because I want to talk for a minute about late-night television in America, something I never watch because I'm an early-to-bed guy. I go to bed no later than 8 o'clock at night. I'm up at 2 in the morning, so that kind of prevents me from watching late-night TV. It's been that way for over 30 years now. But when I was a younger fellow, of course, at times I had the occasion to watch late night talk shows in the States. And of course, the king of late night back in those days was Johnny Carson. And Johnny Carson was funny. And I would often watch his monologues, if not all of his. I couldn't watch all of his show, but sometimes I would catch his monologues. And Carson was a funny comedian, and every night he would come out, and a lot of his jokes would bomb, and that made it even funnier, of course. But we don't have that today on late night TV, and the only reason I know about this is because I've seen clips of some of these late night shows. I think you've got Jimmy Fallon, who's now the Tonight Show host. And then you have, what's his name? Stephen Colbert, who before he got famous, of course, was Stephen Colbert. He's been canned. And the big controversy in the last week was over Jimmy Kimmel, who has a late night talk show. The late breaking news I just read this morning out here on the deck is that they're actually going to reinstate Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel came out last week and said some disparaging things with regard to the Charlie Kirk assassination. It was tasteless, it was thoughtless, it wasn't funny. And that's the point to me about all these current crop of late night comedians. What's my beef with them is simply this: they're just not funny. I don't find them funny at all. I've seen, you know, because of thanks to YouTube and what have you, I've seen Jimmy Kimmel perform. I've seen Stephen Colbert, and I just don't think they're funny. I just don't find them funny at all. And to me, the whole point of late night TV, late night talk shows, was to be funny, was humor. But instead, these things have just become political hate fest with their hatred and their bile, of course, spewed toward the right, always toward the right, always toward MAGA, always toward Trump. All they do is tote the water for the Democrats because that's what they are, that's who they are. And of course, with their liberal New York City audiences, it makes it sound like all of America thinks it's funny. Well, all of America doesn't think it's funny. These shows aren't watched by but a handful of people, and these performers, comedians, are paid massive sums of money. But from all I'm reading, they're not making any money for the networks. And the question about all this is, why was Jimmy Kimmel canned, at least for until today, I guess? Why was Stephen Colbert canned? You can say whatever you want, but the bottom line for me is simply this: they were canned because they're not funny and they're not making money. And the networks, which wrote their paychecks, were hemorrhaging money. I know that was the case with Colbert and Kimmel. I don't know about the other guys. And of course, Kimmel's show, Kimmel is an employee of the good old Disney Corporation, who has decided apparently to bring him back. And we'll see how that goes. But the bottom line to me is, and of course the left is just in an uproar over the fact that these unfunny host got sacked, and they blame MAGA for it. They blame Trump for it. It's not MAGA's fault. You're not funny, and you're not making your network any money, and that's why you got fired. That's reason enough. It doesn't have to be political. That's reason enough. The fact that you go out and make disparaging comments in the light of Charlie Kirk's assassination was outrageous. And you should have been terminated for that. But you should have been terminated long ago. You weren't making any money for your network. How many people get to keep their jobs when they're costing their employers money? Not many. They certainly don't get paid millions of dollars, do they? So all I can say to these late night comedians is, you're not funny, I'm not amused, and good riddance. I'm not a watcher anyway. I'm not a viewer, so it doesn't really matter to me. But there you have it. I watch YouTube. it's just a potpourri. Whatever you want to learn. You want to learn how to hang a door, go to YouTube. Educate yourself. By the way, before I go, last night I watched a movie that I highly recommend. It's actually a documentary, and the name of the documentary is called Muscle Shoals. It is a documentary about the Fame recording studio and another recording studio, the world famous recording studio, actually studios now, up in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, where seemingly everybody and his brother has gone to record music. The story is utterly fascinating. Everybody, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, you name it, everybody, Aretha Franklin, everybody recorded at Muscle Shoals so they could get the Muscle Shoals sound. It is a fascinating documentary, and I highly recommend it. I'll link it down below so that you can watch it if you're so inclined. Okay, I'm just going to sit here, drink coffee, and wait for the sun to come up. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you soon.